My name is Marco Irby, and I've been working with Patrick Cameron for now 25 years. So it's a very long time. And I'm responsible for the wardrobe for Patrick's shows. So I design and make by myself the wardrobe. I'm responsible also for developing some of the collections that we do, and also any area that is pertinent to the creative side of things I'm responsible for. So there's many things that I do. Let's just say that being bored is not part of my everyday agenda. Well, Patrick and I actually met socially. At that time, I actually gave up. I'm a hairdresser, by the way, so actually gave up hairdressing for about a year, and I was in the process to actually start university. I just applied to do an art of history course because I went to art school, so that's always been my passion, that's my background. And I wasn't really happy with my personal situation being a hairdresser. I was doing freelance work. I was feeling very frustrated. I think as a creative person, it's really difficult in a way to find yourself motivated, and also there's so much expected from you for free, especially when you start. And you know, as much as it is to actually gain experience, at the same time you also need to support yourself. And I think I got to a point where I was getting a lot of great jobs, but really it wasn't financially viable for me anymore. So I thought, I'm gonna step out of this. And also bear in mind, with hairdressing, it's something you can step out of and then, you know, go back anytime you want to. Once you learn a skill, that skill is for life. So I just applied for uni, and I was out socially, just having a drink with a friend, and Patrick was there with 3 friends of his, and bizarrely enough, actually, was with the other Marco that also works with the company for us. And we just kind of started chatting, and I think creative people have a way to somewhat gravitate. You know, we became friends, and you know, we kept in touch. And you know, Patrick said, "Oh, you know, I do shows," and I said, "But you know, I also do my own costumes." And I remember he actually said, "Like, look, I can show you the pattern of this costume for this dress that I made." Then I said, "Great, that's brilliant." And then, you know, bit by bit, you know, I said, "You know what? That's great, but you know what? I can actually do better than that." And he said, "Would you want this pattern anyway?" I said, "I'll take it, but you know, I'm sure we can do better than that." And it was really funny because when I first met Patrick, he just had a very successful show at the Hairdressing Congress, and it was like the first big show that he did where it was the front person, and he got like a standing ovation, and then from that point on, kind of, because I stepped in, and it kind of started very casually, you know, at first. Obviously, there wasn't really a proper kind of plan or agreement. It was just like, "Oh yeah, maybe you can do this for me, or you can do that." And so we did the first show together, did the costumes for the first show, and that went really, really well. And then, you know, a few little other jobs kind of came up, and I started traveling with Patrick a little bit. And then eventually, bit by bit, I just became a full-time person within the Patrick Cameron company. Yeah. As a creative person, you never really sit down and think, "Okay, I'm going to create now." I think the creative process is always in the back of your mind. You're always thinking of something. You know, I'm always thinking of something I pick up. You know, I'm very visual, so I might see something. It will be literally stored in the back of my brain somewhere, and then I start developing an idea. Now, when it comes to shows, the most important thing for me is the mood of the show. And I think it's very important to do research in terms of what's happening, you know, in the fashion world, see what everybody else is doing, but we never really follow trends as such. What we like to do is we like to work with mood. So let's say I would say to Patrick, "Oh, I would like to do something that maybe is a little bit more I don't know, romantic, and I've got this in mind. What do you think about that?" If Patrick says, "Yeah, that's great, I like that," then I will go ahead and I'll go to the next step. So the next step will be the practical side. Now, obviously there is a budget, so work within that budget. Also, you have to kind of find the right materials that you want to work with. See, the way that we work, you know, I have to produce about 25 items a year. which is too many to actually go to a shop and buy fabric by the meter, but it's too little to actually go to like a warehouse and say, oh, can you supply me? Because, you know, there's minimum orders. So it's really difficult for what we do with limited resources to actually find the right people that you can work with and say, okay, I can supply you with, you know, 200 meters of this because, you know, otherwise somebody else would say, oh, you know, if you want this fabric, you need 3,000 meters. I mean, I work from home. I have nowhere to store 3,000 meters of fabric that I'm never going to use again. So there are those constraints as well you have to work with. And the other thing that is really important when you plan a collection, that collection has to travel. What we do is international work. We do shows. So everything has to be packed. And we have a limit of 2 suitcases per wardrobe. And I always try to do 1 suitcase per wardrobe. Also, there is a weight issue. So everything you design has to be folded and then has to come out the other end and, you know, a quick steam and has to be ready to go on stage. So it's a creative process that involves a lot of things that people don't really realize, you know. So, but we kind of pride ourselves for being very good packers. We're excellent packers. And I mean, after 25 years, you do learn, you know, how to really pack well. And also we pride ourselves to be a show in a box. I mean, we're able to literally open that suitcase and hopefully deliver the magic that people will expect. We have a core of models that we like working with. So when we are in London, we have the luxury to work with the models that we can choose ourselves. When we do international shows, things are changing now, which is actually really good for us in a way, because we can do online castings, where before you literally have to go and, you know, select the girls. And so with online castings, what you do a pre-selection. So instead of seeing 100 girls, you can only really see, let's say you pre-select, I don't know, 15 girls that you're going to get 10 out of. And then, you know, you meet them and see which of those 15 girls will be more suitable for the show. And then that's what we do. But for us, casting, because we specialize in long hair, is not as problematic as it will be for, you know, who does very extreme cutting and coloring, because obviously that's a really big commitment. So for us, long hair, you know, it's a little bit easier in that respect. Sometimes what happens, I design in a way that I can literally fit a model from size 8 to 12. And pretty much that works across the board. And sometimes you do a pre-casting and you don't realize, let's say, that, you know, that model was actually really busty and somehow doesn't really quite work with what you've done, but you kind of make it work. I mean, both Patrick and I really like very voluptuous, you know, women. You know, we don't like kind of innocent-looking girls. We like women with attitude. So, you know, and the way I design the clothes, I always kind of make sure every item of clothing has an inner structure. So everything is boned and reinforced and can be adjusted at the back. So there is a certain shape, you know, that you can actually manipulate to an extent, you know. So in that respect, over the years, I actually learned to be able to do almost one size fits all. See, the thing is, Patrick and I have a great relationship. We can literally be together in complete silence. And I think that really is the signs of a really good friend, when you can actually be completely comfortable being in silence. Or we will be, you know, just like chatting nonstop, and it can be about work, and it can be, you know, all sorts of things. You know, we know each other really well. Also, because I'm from Italy, Patrick is from New Zealand, our families are, you know, far away. So you do tend to, you know, with the people that you're close to think of them as your family. So, you know, Patrick is my family here. Well, I came to London many times before I actually moved here. So I spent probably in total about 12 months on 4 different occasions. And I always really liked London. The first time I came here, I just finished art school, and I did well at school. So my parents, as a way of, like, you know, reward me, which is very rare. My parents are very strict. So for them to actually reward me, they must have been very pleased. They said, okay, this is an open ticket to go to London. And I think they gave me £500 in cash, which at the time I thought it was this extraordinary amount of money. And they thought, open ticket, it's going to be back like in 2 weeks. And I was there for 3 months. I made that money last. And I was amazed. I've always been really drawn to English culture. And also at the time, the first time I came here was in 1984. So all the music, came from the UK, and, the clubbing was amazing. I just loved the art gallery. Finally, I managed to see all the paintings that and sculptures that I've studied, for 5 years. I could actually see this close to me. And it was great. I just loved the atmosphere. I just loved the vibe. I never feel threatened. I've always really enjoyed London. So when I went back, and I had to come up with a plan, because at the time in Italy, you had compulsory military service, which I really didn't want to do. And in order to avoid it, you have to be in full-time education. And I didn't really have a plan. I wanted to work in fashion. I wasn't really quite sure exactly in what area. Then I thought, I think I'm going to go into hairdressing. I see, how that works for me. And then if it doesn't work, obviously I can move on to something else. So then I came back and I just started hairdressing, college. I was in college for 3 years, and and that was that. And so when I came here, the first thing I did, my first job really was working in a salon. So yeah, and I did that for a few years. I had a lot of random jobs. I think you can ask any creative person and they will have a lot of random jobs, because it's actually really hard to make money from being creative alone. So you actually have to find ways to earn money. I think probably the most random job I had for a while, I worked as an extra, and which was good because it was very flexible. And then the reason I stopped, the money wasn't great, but you can actually do other stuff as you were doing it, because you'll be waiting for hours. So you can actually do other stuff in the meantime. But then I remember one time, and the reason I stopped, because I got really annoyed at this. They called me at 4:30 in the afternoon, and I said, we need you on set, and it was really far away and I couldn't get there. I said, at 5 o'clock, could you get there? And I said, I don't think I can be there for 5. And I said, what about like 5:15? And I said, okay. He said, what's the job? I said, well, we need someone to be in full drag. And I said, hang on a minute, is someone gonna dress me and make me up? No, you have to supply your own. And I said, I don't really have anything suitable. And I said, anyway, is there anywhere once I get there that I can actually change and get dressed? I said, no, you're expected to arrive in full drag. And I'm thinking, I've never done it before. I don't really have the stuff, and I don't think I have it. I have it in me to go from A to B in full drag. And I thought, oh, you know what? I don't think this is gonna work for me anymore. And that was the end of my extra career. Okay, in the really early 90s, there was like a big property boom, and there was a lot of demand for show flats. And I had a friend that used to do that. So I used to do soft furnishing for them, and also a little bit of kind of art direction. So that was kind of a weird job for me to do, because even though I'm trained as a tailor, that's another story, by the way. We can go back to that. So they're two very different things, soft furnishing and tailoring. It's all about sewing, but it's a very different approach. But I've done different things, but it's all been fun. I never really, like Patrick in a way, we're not afraid of hard work, and if something is thrown to us, we just grab it and say, okay, let's see what we can do out of this. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's a lesson learned anyway. We've got very different personalities. So I'm very happy, like literally working like 8 hours straight without saying a word to anyone in my study, beating away or doing whatever. And for me, that's heaven. I love my music and I'm great. I think Patrick needs more human contact. I think he will just wilt being on his own for so much time. But for me, it's a great balance because, when we travel and when we work, we are surrounded by people all the time, and you have to be personable, you have to be nice, and I used to work in a salon. So for me, I'm very happy to be in company, and I'm very comfortable being in company, but at the same time, I'm very comfortable by myself, and I can spend time by myself for a very long time. And it's really funny because when I'm at home and I'm working on a collection, and sometimes I've got really tight deadlines, so I really have to get on with it. And there's no interruption, there's no phone calls. I mean, literally, you sit and you probably have a break, like 20-minute break for lunch, and then that's it. And then you realize at the end of the day, you haven't uttered a single word. And then, like my partner will come back and say, "You're right." And I'm like, "Eh." Like literally you're so hoarse because you haven't said a word. So then you realize, oh gosh, but it doesn't bother me, it's fine. Oh, I love music. That's one of my biggest regrets, I think. I've always wanted to learn an instrument, and I never really had the opportunity, and that's probably one of my biggest regrets. And when I kind of tried later on in life, it was too late by that point. And I think my life went into so many different directions. And I think, you know what, maybe kind of stick to what you know and what you can do well, and maybe get better at what you can do, and let's forget that avenue. But I love music, actually, and one of the things that we do for the shows, I actually research the shows for the music, I do all the music editing. I'm actually really, for me, music is so essential, and it's part of what we do. It does supply that kind of mood and that kind of framework for everything to work. It kind of oils the machine, because it's all very well to have something that is visually stunning. You have the educational side, but also you need something that kind of combines and binds everything. And I think music, and it's really funny because people really get emotional when they watch the shows, because it's a combination of seems something they can relate to, but at the same time there is a sound, and the immediate response is like goosebumps, and you think oh, that's nice, So music is very important, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna talk to you about the big beast here, the pink elephant in the room. This is a very important costume for me because we've been working for many, many, many years, and Patrick has been the host for International Television for a number of years, almost since it started, actually. So, and we were asked to do a segment for Television, and it was the very first time that Patrick was actually going to be doing hair on stage. Now, I work by myself with very limited resources at home, so I don't have people that work for me. Everything that I do, I cut. Literally, I have to move furniture in my living room. I'll be on the floor cutting and then reassembling in a different room. So we're asked to do a show, and they said the theme is, because it's in Monaco, has to be this kind of Monaco, kind of Grace Kelly type of thing. And we want you to do 6 models. Now, I was asked to do this at the beginning of August, and everything had to be ready in October. Bearing in mind, we also have other jobs. We had the launch of the new collection for Salon International. So it was a big job, and Patrick said, no matter what, it has to be the best show you've ever done. So we kind of had to borrow from previous stuff that we've done and reassemble everything in a way that we can actually produce this amazing show. And what I thought would be really nice, because they told me Grace Kelly was the inspiration, and there is one of my favorite movies is To Catch a Thief. And there is an amazing ballroom scene when she arrives, and she's magnificent. And I thought it would be really nice to kind of recreate that, because nobody else is going to do that. And it's going to be so, everybody else is going to do stuff that is very edgy, very modern, and it'll be quite nice to actually go to the complete extreme. So, yeah, so we created 6 outfits in 6 different colors. So we had a really strong kind of visual impact in terms of color. But I've never created anything this big, mainly because it's actually really difficult to get through. I don't know whether you've ever been backstage, but backstage are really small. The girls couldn't actually get through. They had to go sideways, lift the hoops, and then just kind of find the way in through the door, then go down again. It was actually quite... and also, this had to travel. There's 6 of these. So there was a little bit of engineering to be done with that. So for me, that's really important. That was a challenge. I would never take that challenge for such a short period of time. But it was a good show. There was 2,000 people in the audience. And the finale for this show was so amazing that everybody stood up, and there was a sea of iPads and phones. All you can see was iPads and phones and flashes, and then you can see shoulders moving. And I'm thinking, why is everybody's shoulders kind of moving? People were crying. It was such an emotional, and all you can hear was sobbing. I'm like, what's going on? It was just the most bizarre thing. And then, Patrick came on stage, and there was this, literally was like a roar. And I thought, oh, isn't this nice, And that, for me, was very, very special. And I think for Patrick was very special too. It was the first time that I was because normally I'm not in the audience anyway, I'll be backstage. So it was the very first time I was actually in the audience watching a show. So yeah, it was very nice, very special. So that's very special to me. I think it's really important in a way when you're a creative person, and especially when you're entering competitions. I mean, sometimes when you start, you'll have to put forward a model that you're responsible for, obviously the hair and then the complete styling. I think when you do that, the most important element is always the hair. The clothes are really important, but at the same time, the clothes cannot overtake the hair, because if you enter a competition or if you're going to do a show, especially when you start and you really are building your name, the main focus is the hair, because I mean that's what you do, you're a hairdresser. I think it's nice for hairdressers to explore different creative avenues. I think it's really important. The fact that I'm a hairdresser, but also I trained in tailoring. It never really took away from, one thing didn't take away from the other. If anything, actually, it really has enriched me in many ways, because I've been able to explore techniques that I was able to translate from one thing to the other. So there's things that we use, let's say, in tailoring that, then techniques that we can translate then into hair. So if I was to give somebody advice on how to start, it just really is keep it simple to start off with. Make sure the hair is the hero of the story. And I was told this once, and it always made me laugh. It said, just look at your model fully dressed and then look away. Whatever you remember saying, go back and take it away. I'm not a great believer of that, quite frankly, but they made me laugh, because I mean, sometimes there's certain things that, if your eye captures that, I actually think probably that's a good thing, But yeah, keep it simple is always the best advice. And then I think the more confident you get and the bigger your shows become, then you can experiment a little bit more. But I think to begin with, always keep it simple.